everyone, welcome back to my channel and another tutorial. I am super excited to be doing one of the launch videos for the new Sewn Ideas pattern, the stylish bag. I am in love with this bag. I learned a lot with it. There's a lot of different techniques in order to get this very awesome shape. I mean, look at the bottom, the stitching on the bottom. Let me show you some features of this bag. So in the pattern, they actually have strap connectors. I chose to do it as hidden connectors, so I changed that in it just because I like the hidden connectors. It's got a front pocket here. You could easily replicate this on the back if you wanted a back pocket. Top zipper closure, opens up nice and big. You have a slip pocket on one side and a zipper pocket on the other side. I think the only thing I did different in this pattern, or when I did this one that's different from the pattern, is how I finished the bag. As you all know, if you follow my channel, I like to finish my bags by pulling the lining through an open zipper pocket to finish it that way. So because the interfacing in this, the external interfacing is all Decovil Heavy, not Decovil Light, Decovil Heavy. So the full bottom is left open for easy turning because you don't want the Decovil Heavy to wrinkle within turning. Yeah, she closes it through the lining, which is great. I close the lining through my pocket, which we just know that's what I prefer to do. This one I made in more faux leather. This is the charcoal and the grape. All of my hardware is from Emmeline Bags. My zipper and zipper pull are from a Blue Calla. My lining was just something I had in my scrap bin. I believe that I got it from Spoonflower, but it's been in my scrap bin for about 2 years, so I don't really remember what it is called. What else? My woven interfacing is SF101. Yeah, and Decovil Heavy. We have Decovil Heavy on the sides, on the bottom, and on the main panels. So yeah, I think you guys will really like this pattern. So let's get to it and get to making this bag.
Okay, so what we are going to need are rivets, four 1-inch rectangular rings, three number 5 zipper pulls, and number 5 zipper tape, five purse feet, that's it for hardware. All right. I am doing my straps different. As you can see, you can get the class to how to do double-sided 2-color straps in the description below. So I've cut 4 pieces for my straps. My bottom stabilizer piece, you can do this in Decovil Heavy or Peltex. Your exterior bottom and your lining bottom, my cotton pieces are backed with SF101 medium woven interfacing. An exterior and lining outer zipper pocket pieces. Four piping pieces, as well as you will need 5 30-second piping cording if you're making your own piping. Four connector pieces, 2 zip tab pieces. Now I am doing my typical zipper overlay for the lining and slip pocket, decorative slip pocket for my lining. Your exterior decorative band for the exterior zipper pocket. Your lining piece for the zipper pocket. 2 pieces for your slip pocket. Four exterior side pieces cut mirrored to one another. And the same for the lining. 4 pieces cut mirrored to one another. My exterior pieces are backed with Decovil Heavy outside of the seam allowances. My lining panels, and then my 2 exterior panels, which also have Decovil Heavy on the back outside of the seam allowances. Okay, so we are going to start with the exterior zipper pocket. So I've gone ahead and I have just put a tack stitch at one end of our zipper. Now I'm going to use my double-sided tape, and on the short end of this panel, I'm going to put some tape down on the lining piece, right side up. And then I'm going to take my zipper with the pull to the right, closing to the right, and stick it along that top. Now you will notice that my zipper is longer than the top of this panel. That is okay. We will trim that up here shortly. Okay, and then I'm going to take the exterior piece and put some more double-sided tape along the top of that one. And lay it right sides together on top of that lining piece and that zipper. So we are sandwiching the zipper in between the lining and the exterior panels. And we're going to go to the machine, and we are putting on our zipper foot and stitching this nice and close to the zipper at approximately 1/4 inch seam allowance. You will utilize your zipper foot in this pattern a lot. Okay, so I need to press my seams back. So because I'm using vinyl, I'm going to put double-sided tape on the seam, and it's because I can't press it as it will melt. So I'm just going to push my seam nice and tight away from my zipper teeth. Flip it over and do the same with the lining side, bringing them wrong sides together. Pulling the lining panel nice and tight away from the zipper teeth as well. And now we're going to top stitch these. Okay, I'm also going to go ahead and down the 3 sides, I am going to baste them together. So you can see here I have it all basted. Now I'm going to take my exterior front panel, and I am going to line this pocket up on top, matching all of the raw edges. You can see my lining is a little bit longer. We will trim that out of the way later on. Okay, so make sure you pull your zipper into the bag so it's not going to be hanging outside of the seam allowances. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and baste all the way around here and stitch across the top of the zipper. Again, you'll see my zipper foot is going to remain on my machine for much of this bag. I strongly recommend using your zipper foot. It just helps get everything nice and tight. And we are going to be dealing with some thick fabrics here, so it really, and small seam allowances, so the zipper foot really helps. Okay, and straight across the unsewn side of the zipper. And where my zipper teeth are, I just like to do a little bit of a backstitch just to create a stop there. Okay, so now we have a functioning pocket. Now we are going to take our decorative strip for the exterior zipper pocket. You're going to mark a line at the halfway mark, which is about 3/4 of an inch. Some double-sided tape. I'm using thinner double-sided tape, so I'm going to do a strip on each side. If you have thicker double-sided tape, you could just put it down the center line. And then we are going to fold those long edges into that center line. Okay, and then take some more double-sided tape and put it down the center of the wrong side of that band we have just created. Okay, so this is going to sit right at the very top unsewn edge of our, right here, of our zipper pocket. Now you want to make sure that you're laying this nice and even with our zipper teeth there. We want it to be as straight as possible with about the same amount of spacing as our other seam. And then we are going to top stitch down both along sides of this band. Okay, so now we can trim all the excess out of the seam here. So just follow the line of the bag and then you'll end up getting something like this. Okay, so now we are going to create our piping. I really love the way she does her piping here. So mark a center line down each of the piping pieces. I like to put some double-sided tape down that center line and also along one of the long edges. So the center line one, we're going to take our cording piece and we are going to stick that centered onto that piping piece. And then we are going to bring the long edges together, enclosing the piping cording. And I'm just going to put a clip onto these ends just to keep it closed. And then we are going to base that with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance for all 4 pieces. So again, have your zipper foot on for this. And I am going to chain stitch all 4 just to save on some thread. And those are done. Okay, so we are going to install the piping. So on our exterior pattern piece, you're going to see where it says to start the piping. And it's pretty much right at the point at the bottom of the bag. Just up from the bottom of the bag. So right along the curve there. So you can mark where it needs to start. And with the shape of the piping that she has done here, it's nice because we don't have to veer the piping off like we usually do in most bags. It's the shape of the piping piece does it for us automatically. So now we're going to match the raw edge of our piping piece, line that right up against the raw edges, and then curve it around that curve. Use lots of clips. Some of these seams can get a little bit thick, well, especially because I'm using all vinyl. This bag can also be made in cottons and canvases. Make it in anything. Now keep in mind that the piping is not going to go all the way to the top of the panel. And that's okay. Just make sure those raw edges are nice and even. And you're going to have about an inch or so excess at the top of the exterior panel that does not have piping on it. And do the same with the other side on both panels. Okay, so zipper foot still on. And we are going to go and stitch this on. With about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance again. Just like so. Go ahead and do that with the other 3 sides. So there, that is our piping. So now we are going to mark where our handle connectors are. This is where you will place the handle connectors if you are following the pattern the way she does it. I am actually going to use these marks as where I am going to place my hidden connectors. So I'm just putting the pattern piece down on my panel, and I'm going to take an erasable pen and just mark those lines. And then using these marks for placement, go ahead and do your chosen way of your connectors. Okay, so here's my hidden connectors all done. I have put in rivets and Decovil Heavy behind the rivets for extra security on both pieces. Now I'm going to show you how to do the sides like you saw on that exterior piece. So if you are using directional fabric or if you have fussy cutted, make sure you have them going the right way. I'm using solid color, so I don't have to be overly careful. So we're going to take the curved side of our side pieces and we are going to match it along the curve of our side here. Once again, using lots of clips to hold this in place. It's going to feel like it doesn't want to go along that curve, but it will. This is how we're getting that unique shape that the bag has. So because I'm using vinyl, I am now going through 4 layers of vinyl here. And you can see how it's already curving in. Now the Decovil Heavy, because it is so stiff, makes it a little bit awkward to sew this, but it is so worth it. Just use lots of clips to make sure it stays in place. And make sure you're using a zipper foot on your machine because we're pretty much going to be putting the zipper foot right up against that Decovil Heavy piece. So a narrow foot is very helpful here. Okay, and a stiletto is very helpful here with my zipper foot. So you can see how the bag kind of curves. You're going to be, and it's because it's so stiff. So you're going to just be following that curve up and around. And we are going to stitch this on with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Take it nice and slow so you get a nice even curve and nice even seam right up against that piping. You can take it slow, clip by clip, using your stiletto to hold everything nice and even for those raw edges. And you can see how my zipper foot is almost right up flush beside that Decovil Heavy piece. And I'm not forcing the bag flat here, mainly because I do not want my Decovil Heavy piece to wrinkle, which sometimes happens with Decovil Heavy. This is a very structured bag. It is awesome, and you just want those Decovil pieces to stay as perfect as possible. Okay, so I've gone ahead and I've done that with all of the sides. You can see how beautiful the piping is and how that curving is. I also went ahead and installed my nameplate. Okay, so you can put those aside for now. Okay, now we are going to work on our lining slip pockets. You're going to put the 2 slip pocket pieces right sides together. And we are going to sew along the 2 long sides with 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, leaving the sides open. Okay, so now we have a tube, so we're going to turn this right side out. And then take this to your iron and give it a good press. Okay, so now you can go ahead and you can top stitch just the one side with the 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm actually going to add in a decorative band on the top of my slip pocket just because this is what I do for the lining of all of my bags. This is not necessary. This is just what I do to keep my linings consistent. So if you are doing it like I'm doing it, I have a 1.5 inch piece of vinyl here, and I am putting the tape on each of the long sides. Remove the bottom side of tape and line my slip pocket top right up against that line. And then fold over the other side of the faux leather over the top. Super simple. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to top stitch along the bottom of that and another one along the top. Okay, so now to install the slip pocket, put some double-sided tape on the untop stitch side. We are going to measure up 1 3/4 inch from the bottom of our lining panel. Not 1.5, Brandy, 1 3/4. There we go. And using our ruler, we are going to put our slip pocket on there. Now our slip pocket is going to hang off each side. Just make sure all of the raw edges are outside of that, and then we can trim it up. So we are going to go trim it up here. So we are going to base this onto our lining piece down the sides and top stitch along the bottom. I am also going to go ahead and I am going to install my zipper pocket with overlay. I do have a class on how I do that below. Okay, so go ahead and add your side pieces of your panels the same way we did with the exterior, just making sure you branch out to a 1/2 inch in the middle and ending and beginning at 1/4 of an inch. All right, so for our top zipper, you are going to need your zipper ends. Now I'm doing this slightly different because I'm doing my zipper ends with vinyl. If I did it the way it was in the pattern, they'd just be too thick. So for vinyl, I just drew a line down the middle of my zipper pieces. If you are using cotton, you would do the double fold method where you fold them both into the center and then upon itself again, but this is how I am getting around using my vinyl pieces. So a little piece of tape on each or 2 of the sides. And very much how we did our slip pocket, we are going to do our zipper here. So I'm just going to put my zipper to that end. And then I'm going to fold over and match up those raw edges on the other side. Now you can only do this with non-fraying fabric because there is a raw edge. And then I'm just going to go ahead and top stitch right along there and with the other side as well. And fold it over. And just make sure in top stitching that you're catching both sides. As you can see, I have caught both sides and my zipper is done. Now you want to find the center of your zipper. So I'm just folding it in half and taking my erasable pen and just marking on the center fold on both sides of the zipper tape. Okay, so take your lining panels and find your centers, tops and bottoms by folding in half and doing a small clip at the center. Or you can use a marking pen to do this if you don't want to clip. If you are clipping like me, make sure you're keeping it within the seam allowance. So just a tiny 1/8 of an inch clip. Okay, so I'm taking my slip pocket side, or my lining with the slip pocket on it. I am going to run double-sided tape along the top of it. You can do this with clips as well, or you can baste this on if you find that easier as well. Okay, and then I'm going to take my zipper with my pull closing to the right. And I'm going to put it both of these pieces right sides up, matching up that center, and stick my tape evenly across without stretching my zipper tape. You got to be careful not to stretch the zipper tape because you do not want to have a wavy zipper. I find if you accidentally stretch the zipper tape or if you don't get close enough to the teeth, that usually results in a wavy zipper, top zipper. I didn't quite do my tape long enough, so I'm just going to add another little piece here. Okay, and I'm just going to make sure that's centered. I have about an inch hangover on each side, so I'm good. So you could go ahead and baste this right now. I am just going to take my exterior piece. I am using my front panel here. And I'm going to lay some more double-sided tape right along the top of that zipper that we just basted on or taped on. And then we're going to take our exterior front panel and lay it right sides together with this lining panel, sticking it to this tape nice and centered. So make sure you're matching up your center marks. Again, you can use clips or you can hand base this on depending what your preference is. Okay, now we're going to go sew that with a 1/4 inch seam allowance with your zipper foot. Your zipper foot is your friend. And this will bring you nice and close to the teeth. As you can see, my zipper foot is almost going right up against the Decovil Heavy again. Okay, so now we need to fold these wrong sides together. So again, because I can't press this as I am using vinyl, I am going to use my double-sided tape again to press my exterior nice and tight away from my zipper teeth. Make sure that your stitching is nice and even. If you have to go back to even out your stitching, go ahead, but mine is looking pretty good. Okay, and then I need to do the same with the lining piece. Want to pull it nice and tight. You don't want that lining to get caught in your zipper at all. Okay. And then we are going to top stitch from just the zipper tab to zipper tab and not on these ends. And to the other zipper tab, backstitch. Okay, and then you go ahead and do the same with the other two panels, and then this is what we have. You can see my zipper looks nice and even, which is what we want. And we are getting so close to completing this bag. So now we need to prep our exterior bottom piece. So I am going to find the center of all 4 sides of my exterior bottom piece, just by doing my small clips. And then I am going to do the same with my Peltex or Decovil Heavy piece. Now I am using fusible Decovil Heavy, so I am actually going to just iron this on. If you don't have fusible, you can definitely sew this on as well. All right, so I'm just going marching my center lines here on both my bottom and my stabilizer piece, not the gluey side of the stabilizer piece, but the side without the glue. And I'm just going to use these marks to center this nicely on my bottom piece. So just march up my lines, and that should have me pretty centered. And then I'm going to go ahead and I am going to fuse that with my iron. Okay, now this is the fun part. I have never done this before. So I went and made little slits along the markings of this piece and little holes where my purse feet will go. So I can just take my pen and go through those holes. And as I draw through this dotted line and I have my little slits that I made with my scissors, it'll transfer those marks onto my Decovil Heavy piece here. And these are going to be the guides to how we sew this decorative top stitching on here. Now we are going to be sewing this from the wrong side, so make sure your bobbin thread looks good. And if you were, I'm just going to be doing these curvy lines. If you needed to sew your non-fusible piece on here, you would also sew along the outsides of your Decovil or Peltex piece and create a square. Okay, so now we are going to take one of our exterior pieces. Make sure you know where the bottom center is of that. You need to mark the center on both pieces actually. But we'll do it for this one. And then we are going to take our bottom piece right sides together. So our lining is up and out of the way. We're just working with our exterior pieces. Match up our centers and clip across. And then we're going to sew across this with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can see now I have my regular foot on. Now I'm going to do another line of stitching about 1/8 inch away from that one into the seam allowance, just to make sure it's extra stable. Just like so. And then you are going to open up your zipper, pull your other exterior piece over, flipping your lining out of the way, and we are going to match up the other side of our bottom piece with the bottom of our back side exterior piece. Matching up our centers. And then we are going to sew this the same manner that we did with the other side, so with a 1/4 inch seam allowance and then with 1/8 inch seam allowance. The double stitching really helps to make sure that your threads do not show through on the exterior, especially when you're working with thick fabrics. So there we go. We have that exterior piece done. Okay, so we are going to do the same thing with our lining piece, but we are only going to sew one side on for now, and that is because we want a complete open bottom for turning this bag. With the Decovil Heavy as our main stabilizer, it would be really hard to get it through a small hole, so we are just going to attach this on one side, and then we are going to finish it off through the zipper pocket later. Okay, so now we are going to work on the sides. This is the toughest part of the bag, and it's not that bad. So our zipper tab, you want to make sure is kind of pushing towards the lining, like so. And you want to make sure that our seams all match up really good, so we have a continuous line. I said this was the part I struggled with the most. I'm not too sure why, because it's really not that hard. Maybe it was because of the layers I used. But to hold that in place, these extra large clips work really well just along that heavy seam. So we're only going to do the exterior pieces right now. So you're going to match up our raw edges all the way down to the bottom. And do the same on the other side. Double checking that our zip tabs are nice and even, because we want to have a nice straight zipper there. And our zipper tabs will fall out of the seam allowances. We will not be sewing over them, but we want them to be folded perfectly in half. So again, make sure the zipper tab is kind of billowing out towards the lining side, and match up the raw edges of our side. Double checking this again because we want that top to be perfect. And it will look like we have little wings hanging out. We want that. Okay, so we're going to go up here with the 1/4 inch seam allowance and kind of curve up along this wing here on both sides. Again, I'm double checking that zipper because I don't want it to shift. And when we get to that wing right there, we want to make sure we kind of go up and around like that. And then we're going to go ahead and do another line of stitching like we did before, add an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance just to strengthen that seam. Rinse and repeat with the other side. Again, you can see I'm being very aware of what my zipper tab is doing there because I do not want it to go off kilter. And kind of around up that wing, and then the second line of stitching again. Oops, my thing fell off. Okay, there we go. Make sure that your screws are nice and tight on your zipper foot or on your foot there. That was kind of crazy. Did everybody catch that? That was funny. Okay, so we have the exterior done. So now what we want to do is push that zipper tab towards the exterior piece now. So kind of just pop it in like this. See how it popped in? And then we are going to do the exact same thing that we did with the exterior, but with the lining pieces. So again, make sure you're nice and even with our lining pieces right at the zipper tab. And follow the same process that we did with the exterior. Pop it in, match up those raw edges. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to cut off these wings. So we are going to mark in from the end of that wing 3/4 of an inch. It's pretty much going to line up with our stitching of the two panels. And that's going to give us kind of like a squared off end right where our zipper panels are. So we're going to mark it with a pen, and then we are going to sew right along there. Do the same on both sides. Can't really see it, but it is there. Okay, so I've sewn that. You can see. I hope you can see. And then I'm just going to go ahead and trim off that excess. First, I'm just making sure I didn't catch my zipper tabs in there. You do not want to sew over those zipper tabs at all. And I'm just going to cut off my wings right here. Making sure not to cut the stitching at that 3/4 inch mark that we just sewn. And then I'm just going to reach in and go around all my seams to make sure there's no holes that I need to sew, and we were good. So now we are going to box our exterior corners. So the way we're going to do that is we are going to match that center clip on the short sides of our bottom piece with that center line. I've done one side already. This is really hard to show because this bag is so big. It's kind of going out of my frame, but I'm doing my best here. Okay, so match up that center seam with my center clip mark. And use lots of clips to hold it in place. Now once I got to the left and the right corner of this box corner, I found that my vinyl wouldn't necessarily lie completely flat. It's probably because I am using vinyl. So I just did a little 1/8 of an inch snip on the side with my scissors, and it just helped that vinyl of the side piece lie nice and flat. So just like this, just barely a clip. And you can see it made my vinyl lie nice and flat. So that's a little tip if your vinyl is not wanting to go where it wanted to go or where you needed it to go. And that little snip won't show through because it's within the seam allowance. Make sure you're pushing the bottom seams into the center of the, or towards the bottom panel. I'm going to do it here again, a little snip just to help it lay flat right at that curvy part. Just like that. And then we're going to sew along these with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and then again with an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance to strengthen that seam. So again, the bag is very stiff because it's Decovil Heavy. I didn't put on my zipper foot here. It probably would have helped to do that, but I managed in here. It's just super stiff. And I didn't want to push the bag flat because I do not want to wrinkle my Decovil Heavy. And then my second row of stitching at an 1/8 of an inch. And that's both sides done. Okay, so now you can go ahead when all the stitching looks good and there's no holes anywhere, and turn your bag right side out through the bottom of the lining. Now this took a little bit. It is a very structured bag and the Decovil Heavy is very thick. So just be patient, do it bit by bit, and you will get there. Once you get the bottom through, it comes through pretty easy. Definitely couldn't do this without an opening in the bottom like this, so it's ingenious of Vivi to have left that bottom completely open. Okay, so we're still fighting with her, but she's coming now. Once you get her out, just kind of press out all those seams with your fingers. Okay, so we have the exterior all done. I've pushed out all those seams nice and flat. And now I'm going to stuff my lining into the bag. At this point, you can follow the pattern for how she closes her bag, but I'm going to go ahead and do it the way I like to close all my bags. So you're going to open up your zipper pocket and pull out the zipper pocket. And that opening we left in the bottom, we are going to reach in and we are going to grab the whole open bottom of our lining and pull it through that zipper pocket. This allows for us to have a seamless lining at the bottom of our bag with no top stitching or anything. Okay, so once you get that lining out of that pocket, the first thing you're going to do is match up the unsewn edge of our bottom piece to the bottom of our lining panel. So match up the centers that we marked and clip them together. Excuse me. And go ahead and sew that with a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. So almost done. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and box the corners the exact same way we did with the exterior. Matching up the center notches with that center seam. And sew her shut with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And then repeat it with the other box corner. Okay, then once that is done, you can stuff the lining back in through that lining zipper pocket. You can see it's all closed up, and now it's just top stitching this zipper pocket shut. We already have our ends folded in if you did it the way I do it. Otherwise, just fold those raw edges in and then top stitch. Put your pocket in. And then all that's left to do is put on your straps, because I did do my straps slightly different. If you did it like the pattern, they're already connected. And we're done.
All right, so that's it. That's all. I hope you guys all really enjoyed this tutorial. I don't know, Vivi does a really good job when it comes to writing these patterns. So yeah, so thank you again, Vivi, for allowing me to do tutorials on your patterns. And if you haven't already, please leave me a comment below. If you haven't already, please do hit that subscribe button and show me your support, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.